remember going into this field in eastern Colorado, and as we walked through the field, all of the wheat would just fall down.
Plant breeding is important to feed the world in a broad sense. If there weren't plant breeding programs to adapt the varieties to pests and whatnot, then yes, diseases come and insects come.
Sawflies, they are the most prolific pest here in Colorado of winter wheat. Estimated damages from sawflies and wheat are 70 million per year.
In the 80s, you could drive out in eastern Colorado and all the wheat was red chaffed wheat. It was all red chaff. We had a breeding program. It was not as well funded and the varieties weren't as adapted. I think like 85% of the acres were grown on other varieties from like Texas or wherever. In my time here, that's completely flipped, and almost 85% of the acres in Colorado were grown to CSU varieties, and that's been a very gratifying sort of thing.
I'm proud of the impact that this program has. You know, it's 60 years of cooperating with wheat growers in Colorado, responding to the needs of wheat growers, being ready for whatever was to come next.
Any questions about these 4 varieties? I know if you're a grower around here, you're probably doing a lot of...
You think of the breeding program as a cycle, right? So it goes in a circle. The most logical place to start is actually the end of the cycle is harvest time.
So from July until September, we're farmers, we like to say. So I run a hedgerow crew of folks who help with harvesting our early generation trials. The hedgerows are 2 rows wide by 4 feet long, and we have a field here at our deck of about 30,000 of them. Myself and the crew of folks that I hire for the summer go out and hand harvest these 5,000 plots. So the hedgerow generation is about the F4 generation. The crossing starts in Scott's greenhouse.
We take 2 parents, we make a cross, and we develop a population from that cross. Once that population has self-pollinated for a couple of generations, we would start to derive breeding lines out of it.
I guess I didn't know this growing up, but I love working with plants, soil, getting my hands dirty. I love that. My role is I manage the greenhouse. I keep an eye on all the plants and make sure that they have everything they need. Do they need fertilizer? You know, are they doing okay water-wise? Are there pests? In that, I'm also in charge of the early generation program for Eston. We do crossing blocks. I love the challenge of trying to figure out what a plant or a bunch of lines want to grow successfully and grow well. One of my roles that I have in the greenhouse is I am kind of a support member for the double haploid project.
As in all breeding, it takes time. That process takes like 10 years or 12. We have some things in our program that can shorten that cycle by using double haploids. You can probably get like 6, maybe 7 years to develop that.
My name is Dr. Meenakshi Santra. I'm the leader of double haploid program in Colorado State University. When I was looking for a job, he asked me whether you can do double haploid for me or not. And when I set up, that so I was not sure I can do or not. But now it is the #1 double haploid lab in North America. So we make 3,000 double haploid every year. So it is basically a procedure we do crossing between wheat and maize.
My mom says that when I was a kid, I said I wanted to be a scientist when I grew up. I run the molecular marker lab. I do all of the genotyping work, so any molecular marker DNA trait that Eston needs for the program comes through my lab. To process the DNA. We sample short leaf segments. I put them into deep well plates and then do DNA extractions. From there, I perform digestion and ligations. Digesting is cutting up the DNA into little bits and then ligating on barcode adapters. And then we pool. 384 samples are pooled into one little tube. Then when the data comes back, those barcodes that we ligated on are attached to the particular sample. And so that's how Eston is enabled to have the data about that particular line and use it for all kinds of analysis.
I bring all the data together to make the decisions on selections moving forward, and then what lines are going to potentially become varieties. And so we generate a lot of data. We have the data from previous years. We have the data from our field trials that year. We have our genomic data that tells us, predictions about how the lines should do. We have data from our quality lab.
In this lab, I do the experimental baking. We probably run 2,000 some mixographs. I probably bake almost 1,000 loaves of bread. So between the mixographs, we do NIR scans for protein on whole grain and flour on all those samples. So there's probably 4,000 or 5,000 samples we get protein on. I do some PPO testing in here, which is polyphenol oxidase. It's a whitening, brightening reaction. Like you take a bite out of a banana, set it down, it gets dark. That's a reaction that's driven by PPOs. The goal of what I do is to make sure that we're meeting the quality targets of the users. We don't want to release varieties of wheat that aren't good enough. And so when I'm evaluating bread, I evaluate how big does the loaf get? That's a number. And so there's certain minimum standards that things need to meet. I put into the database so that now Eston is the breeder. He can look at this and make sure the varieties we're releasing meet these minimum characteristics that are needed by industry. You think of the breeding program as a pipeline, right? Hopefully at the end of the pipeline you have something that you can release, a variety that's good enough, whether it's yields enough or it's resistant to wheat stem sawfly or it's got good baking quality. You're hoping that at the end each year you have something that's better than what's already there.
So I'm kind of maybe the captain of the ship, but there's all these people that help to steer the ship and get it to where it needs to be. Our goal is to release really good varieties that Colorado producers can access and they can grow on their farms and hopefully have a profitable farm.
We do great work in our program by developing wheat varieties that are adapted to growing in Colorado and benefit the wheat growers of the state.
Different parts of the state have different needs. So in the northern part of the state, wheat stem sawfly is a big issue.
When a field has wheat stem sawfly damage, it causes the wheat to just fall over, even if you just lightly touch it or if the wind blows. Wheat stem sawfly is a native grass-feeding insect, and the reason it's such a problem in these different dryland environments is that with climate change, the life cycle of this pest has really aligned with the time that we are growing our wheat. The pest will actually lay its eggs inside the stem, and that's where most of the life cycle will occur, so you can't control it with traditional measures such as things like pesticides. So it's a really big emphasis in our program because right now the biggest ways to control it are through genetic resistance in the plant.
We've been involved with the CSU Wheat Breeding Program for probably 30 to 40 years. And recently, the recent history, they have released some semi-solid wheat varieties that help us combat the wheat stem sawfly. And that has saved our lives out here. If we hadn't had that, I don't know whether we could continue to grow wheat. But we don't have a lot of options out here for cropping.
Hopefully we can find additional resistance or further understand the resistance we have so that those growers are still able to grow wheat. plant breeding relates to food insecurity by allowing us to create new cultivars that are more resistant to things like diseases, pests, climate change, and that will allow us to continue growing crops in changing environments, which will allow us to keep feeding the population.
The wheat growers have been such wonderful partners and have nurtured this program. It's a very mutualistic thing. You know, they support us and we develop the best varieties for them.
I really enjoy that interaction with farmers. I mean, that's some of the best times that I've had since I've been here, is just, you know, being out, talking to growers, getting feedback, jumping in a combine and actually seeing somebody harvest a wheat variety that you developed is exciting. It's a cycle, it's a season, and everybody kind of plays a role. They might go from, you know, working in the greenhouse to working in the field, or the quality lab to driving a combine.
The ultimate goal, and the thing that's most gratifying for me, is that we're releasing varieties of wheat for growers in Colorado and are making a difference in a lot of people's lives. We're trying to feed the world, and it's you know, that's what we're trying to do.